welcome to Heavy D Storytelling. How are you doing today? We are going to be reading the Bible, as you can see here. Then we are going to be doing the synopsis with Kim, because you guys haven't seen her in a while, but
since 2 days ago.
Yeah, since 2 days ago, but then we are going to be doing, drum roll please, Ben-Hur! Yay! Now we are going to be doing, and here is Heavy D.
What do they need to do?
And hit that like button.
I would just like everybody to notice how much better JJ's eyes are looking. Still not perfect,
Yay!
but better.
Yay!
Since we switched to the other milk.
Yeah.
Are we too bright today? I think we might be actually too bright today. Thank you, 2 people, for being here. I appreciate you. All right, is that better? Okay, I am going to start with Hebrews. And we're on Hebrews chapter 8. This is the English Standard Version. Going to go ahead and get started. I think my phone is about to fall out. So I fixed it. All right. So now I think it's a little more secure. Sorry. Okay. That's better. Yay. All right. So Hebrews chapter 8. This is the English Standard Version of the Bible. Now, the point in what we are saying is this. We have such a high priest, one who is seated at the right hand of the throne of the majesty in heaven, a minister in the holy places, in the true tent that the Lord set up, not man. For every high priest is appointed to offer gifts and sacrifices. Thus it is necessary for this priest also to have something to offer. Now, if he were on earth, he would not be a priest at all, since there are priests who offer gifts according to the law. They serve a copy and shadow of the heavenly things, for when Moses was about to erect the tent, he was instructed by God, saying, "See that you make everything according to the pattern that was shown you on the mountain. But as it is, Christ has obtained a ministry that is as much more excellent than the old, as the covenant he mediates is better, since it is enacted on better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, there would have been no occasion to look for a second. For he finds fault with them when he says, 'Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will establish a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not like the covenant that I made with their fathers on the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. For they did not continue in my covenant, and so I showed no concern for them, declares the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, declares the Lord, I will put my laws into their minds, and write them on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And they shall not teach each one his neighbor, and each one his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest. For I will be merciful toward their iniquities, and I will remember their sins no more. In speaking of a new covenant, he makes the first one obsolete, and what is becoming obsolete and growing old is ready to vanish away. That's the end of Hebrews chapter 8. Tomorrow we'll continue with Hebrews chapter 9. And now it is time. Kimberly is here, or coming, for the synopsis. Let's hear it for Kimberly. Here she is.
So what happened in the last chapter was Iris, she told a story to Ben-Hur, and it was...
What was the story about?
It was about how the Egyptian version of how people were created. And it's a bit weird. Yeah. So, hi, Granny Bear. So, then after that, they talked for a little bit, and she was, like, going on about how she thought that the king that he was looking for would be, like, a big, powerful emperor kind of person. And so they were going to look for the Nazarite, John the Baptist, and because they knew that he was, like, talking about the king and everything who was going to come.
And John the Baptist looked really cool. He's wearing like a gold robe and all this and everything, right?
He's literally wearing camel hide. And they're like, this guy? You sure he's sane? And then he pointed out Jesus, and I think it was like right after Jesus was baptized, so in that time period. And
and Jesus was like spectacular. He's wearing like a white robe and he's glowing. He had a halo over his head, right?
Dad, stop.
He was on a white horse ready for battle.
Dad, stop.
Okay.
Please. So what actually happened was he looked very normal, except in a different way. Like, he looked normal, but not really, like, exceptional. He looked exceptional and normal at the same time. He wasn't some big general, and then...
And tell us what Balthazar thought when he saw him.
He nearly had a heart attack.
And what did Iris think?
Whatever.
And what did Ben-Hur think?
You know, maybe Balthazar and Simonides are both right. He's the king and the Messiah.
And that's pretty much what
The woman was made with lots of strings attached. Granny Bear, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I'm not sure where she's going there. But that'll be a nice conversation at some point.
Oh, yay! Mommy's on too.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with Book 8, the final book in the story of Ben-Hur. You can just sit there while I read from over here if you like. Okay, so Kimberly finished the synopsis, and I was going to stand over there and read if that's what we wanted. Their hearts leapt when they saw Jesus. Yeah, except for Iris. She was like, whatever. So anyway. All right. So this is chapter 1, Guests in the House of Her. And JJ, because I was typing in the title of the Facebook video, Women Came from the Knitting. Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that. That was pretty cool. The woman was made with lots of... Oh, I get it. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So, JJ asked me today, he said, I thought that her was with an E, because her is spelled with an E, and then I had to explain to him that it's not her, like the pronoun, but like the name, her, like, so there it is. What? I think Mom's not seeing their comments. So, all right. So this is chapter 1, Guests in the House of Her. Esther, Esther, speak to the servant below that he may bring me a cup of water. Would you not rather have wine, Father? Let him bring both. This was in the summer house upon the roof of the old palace of the Hurs in Jerusalem. From the parapet overlooking the courtyard, Esther called to a man in waiting there. At the same moment, another manservant came up and saluted respectfully. A package for the master, he said, giving her a letter enclosed in linen cloth, tied and sealed. For the satisfaction of the reader, we stop to say that it is the 21st day of March, nearly 3 years after the Annunciation of the Christ at Bethabara. In the meanwhile, Malach, acting for Ben-Hur, who could not longer endure the emptiness and decay of his father's house, had bought it from Pontius Pilate, and in process of repair, gates, courts, lewens, stairways, terraces, rooms, and roof had been cleansed and thoroughly restored. Not only was there no reminder left of the tragic circumstances so ruinous to the family, but the refurnishment was in a style richer than before. At every point, indeed, a visitor was met by evidences of the higher tastes acquired by the young proprietor during his years of residence in the villa by Messinium and in the Roman capital. Now it should not be inferred from this explanation that Ben-Hur had publicly assumed ownership of the property. In his opinion, the hour for that was not yet come, neither had he yet taken his proper name. Passing the name in the labors of preparation in Galilee, he waited patiently the action of the Nazarene, who became daily more and more a mystery to him, and by prodigies done often before his eyes kept him in a state of anxious doubt, both as to his character and mission. Occasionally he came up to the holy city, stopping at the paternal house, always, however, as a stranger and as a guest. These visits of Ben-Hur, it should also be observed, were far more than mere rest from labor. Balthazar and Iris made their home in the palace, and the charm of the daughter was still upon him with all its original freshness, while the father, though feebler in body, held him an unflagging listener to speeches of astonishing power, urging the divinity of the wandering miracle worker of whom they were all so expectant. As to Simonides and Esther, they had arrived from Antioch only a few days before this their reappearance, a wearisome journey to the merchant, borne as he had been in a palanquin swung between two camels, which in their careening did not always keep the same step. But now that he was come, the good man, it seemed, could not see enough of his native land. I think it's too bright. Is there... That seems dark. Sorry. It's like blinding me. Not sure what... Oh, I think that's better. Let's see. Is that better? All right. Sorry about that. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Okay, here I am. He delighted in the perch upon the roof and spent most of his day hours there seated in an armchair, the duplicate of that one kept for him in the cabinet over the storehouse by the Orontes. In the shade of the summer house he could drink fully in the inspiring air lying lightly upon the familiar hills. He could better watch the sunrise, run its course, and set as it used to in the far gone, not a habit lost, and with Esther by him, it was so much easier up there close to the sky to bring back the other Esther, his love in youth, his wife, dearer growing with the passage of years. And yet he was not unmindful of business. Every day a messenger brought him a dispatch from Sanballat, in charge of the big commerce behind, and every day a dispatch left him for Sanballat, with directions of such minuteness of detail as to exclude all judgment save his own, and all chances except those the Almighty has refused to submit to the most mindful of men. As Esther started in return to the summer house, the sunlight fell softly upon the dustless roof, showing her a woman now, small, graceful in form, of regular features, rosy with youth and health, bright with intelligence, beautiful with the outshining of a devoted nature, a woman to be loved because loving was a habit of life irrepressible with her. She looked at the package as she turned, paused, looked at it a second time more closely than at first, and the blood rose reddening her cheeks. The seal was Ben-Hur's. With quickened steps she hastened on. Simonides held the package a moment while he also inspected the seal. Breaking it open, he gave her the roll it contained. "Read," he said. His eyes were upon her as he spoke, and instantly a troubled expression fell upon his own face. You know whom it is from, I see, Esther." "Yes, from our master." Though the manner was halting, she met his gaze with modest sincerity. Slowly his chin sank into the roll of flesh puffed out under it like a cushion. "You love him, Esther," he said quietly. "Yes," she answered. "Have you thought well of what you do?" "I have tried not to think of him." Have you thought well of what you do? Okay. "I have tried not to think of him, Father, except as the master to whom I am dutifully bound. The effort has not helped me to strength." A good girl, even as thy mother was," he said, dropping into reverie, from which she roused him by unrolling the paper. "The Lord forgive me, but by thy love might not have been vainly given, had I not fast hold of all I had, as I might have done. Such power is there in money." "It would have been worse for me had you done so, Father, for then I had been unworthy a look from him, and without pride in you. Shall I not read now?" "In a moment," he said. "Let me, for your sake, my child, show you the worst. Seeing it with me may make it less terrible to you. His love, Esther, is all bestowed." "I know it," she said calmly. "The Egyptian has him in her net," he continued. "She has the cunning of her race, with beauty to help her. Much beauty, great cunning, but, like her race again, no heart. The daughter who despises her father will bring her husband to grief." "Does she that?" Simonides went on. "Balthazar is a wise man who has been wonderfully favored for a Gentile, and his faith becomes him, yet she makes a jest of it. I heard her say, speaking of him yesterday, 'The follies of youth are excusable. Nothing is admirable in the aged except wisdom, and when that goes from them, they should die.' A cruel speech fit for a Roman. I applied it to myself, knowing a feebleness like her father's will come to me also. Nay, it is not far off. But you, Esther, you will never say of me, 'No, never. It were better he were dead.' No, your mother was a daughter of Judah." With half-formed tears she kissed him and said, "I am my mother's child." "Yes, and my daughter, who is to me all the temple was to Solomon." After a silence he laid his hand upon her shoulder and resumed, "When he has taken the Egyptian to wife, Esther, he will think of you with repentance and much calling of the Spirit, for at last he will awake to find himself but the minister of her bad ambition. Rome is the center of all her dreams. To her he is the son of Arius, the Duumvir, not the son of her, Prince of Jerusalem." Esther made no attempt to conceal the effect of these words. "Save him, Father! It is not too late," she said entreatingly. He answered with a dubious smile, "A man drowning may be saved, not so a man in love." "But you have influence with him. He is alone in the world. Show him his danger. Tell him what a woman she is." "That might save him from her. Would it give him to you, Esther? No." And his brows fell darkly over his eyes. "I am a servant, as my fathers were for generations. Yet I could not say to him, 'Lo, master, my daughter. She is fairer than the Egyptian, and loves thee better.' I have caught too much from years of liberty and direction. The words would blister my tongue. The stones upon the old hills yonder would turn into their beds for shame when I go out to them. No, by the patriarchs, Esther, I would rather lay us both with your mother to sleep as she sleeps." A blush burned Esther's whole face. "I did not mean to tell him so, Father. I was concerned for him also, for his happiness, not mine. Because I have dared love him, I shall keep myself worthy his respect. So only can I excuse my folly. Let me read his letter now. Yes, read it." She began at once, in haste, to conclude the distasteful subject. "Nisan, 8th day. On the road from Galilee to Jerusalem. The Nazarene is on the way also. With him, though without his knowledge, I am bringing a full legion of mine. A second legion follows. The Passover will excuse the multitude. He said upon setting out, We will go up to Jerusalem, and all things that are written by the prophets concerning me shall be accomplished. Our waiting draws to an end. In haste, peace to thee, Simonides, Ben-Hur. Esther returned the letter to her father, while a choking sensation gathered in her throat. There was not a word in the missive for her, not even in the salutation had she a share, and it would have been so easy to have written, And to thine in peace. For the first time in her life she felt the smart of a jealous sting. The 8th day, said Simonides, the 8th day, and this, Esther, is the 9th, she replied. And then they may be in Bethany by now, and possibly we may see him tonight, she added, pleased into momentary forgetfulness. It may be. Tomorrow is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and he may wish to celebrate it. So may the Nazarene, and we may see him. We may see both of them, Esther. At this point, the servant appeared with the wine and the water. Esther helped her father, and in the midst of the service, Iris came upon the roof. To the Jewess, the Egyptian never appeared so very, very beautiful as at that moment. Her gauzy garments fluttered about her like a little cloud of mist. Her forehead, neck, and arms glittered with the massive jewelry so affected by her people. Her countenance was suffused with pleasure. She moved with buoyant steps and self-conscious, though without affection. Esther, at the sight, shrank within herself and nestled closer to her father. Peace to you, Simonides, and to the pretty Esther, peace, said Iris, inclining her head to the latter. You remind me, good master, if I may say it without offense, you remind me of the priests in Persia who climb their temples at the decline of the day to send their prayers after the departing sun. Is there anything in the worship you do not know? Let me call my father. He is magician bred. Fair Egyptian, the merchant replied, nodding with grave politeness, your father is a good man who would not be offended if he knew I told you his Persian lore to the least part of his wisdom. Iris' lip curled slightly. To speak like a philosopher as you invite me, she said, the least part always implies the greater. Let me ask what you esteem the greater part of the rare quality you are pleased to attribute to him. Simonides turned upon her somewhat sternly. Pure wisdom always directs itself towards God. The purest wisdom is knowledge of God, and no man of my acquaintance has it in higher degree, or makes it more manifest in speech and act than the good Balthazar. To end the parley, he raised his cup and drank. The Egyptian turned to Esther a little testily. A man who has millions in store and fleets of ships at sea cannot discern in what simple women like us find amusement. Let us leave him. By the wall yonder we can talk. They went to the parapet then, stopping at the place where, years before, Ben-Hur had loosened the broken tile upon the head of Gratus. You have not been to Rome? Iris began, toying the while with one of her unclasped bracelets. No, said Esther demurely. Have you not wished to go? No. Ah, how little there has been of your life. The sigh that succeeded the exclamation could not have been more piteously expressive had the loss been the Egyptian's own. Next moment her laugh might have been heard in the street below, and she said, Oh, my pretty simpleton, the half-fledged birds nested in the ear of the great bust out of the Memphian sands know nearly as much as you. Then, seeing Esther's confusion, she changed her manner and said in a confiding tone, You must not take offense. Oh, no, I was playing. Let me kiss the hurt and tell you what I would not do. Let me tell you what I would not to any other, not if Symbol himself asked it of me, offering a lotus cup at the spray of the Nile. Another laugh masking excellently the look she turned sharply upon the Jewess, and she said, "The king is coming." Esther gazed at her in innocent surprise. "The Nazarene," Iris continued, "he whom our fathers have been talking about so much, whom Ben-Hur has been serving and toiling for so long," her voice dropped several tones lower, "the Nazarene will be here tomorrow, and Ben-Hur tonight." Esther struggled to maintain her composure, but failed. Her eyes fell, the telltale blood surged to her cheek and forehead, and she was saved sight of the triumphant smile that passed like a gleam over the face of the Egyptian. "See, here is his promise." And from her girdle she took a roll. "Rejoice with me, O my friend. He will be here tonight. On the Tiber there is a house, a royal property, which he has pledged to me, and to be its mistress is to be—" A sound of someone walking swiftly along the street below interrupted the speech, and she leaned over the parapet to see. Then she drew back and cried, with hands clasped above her head, "Now blessed be Isis. 'Tis he, Ben-Hur himself, that he should appear while I had such thought of him. There are no gods if it be not a good omen. Put your arms about me, Esther, and a kiss." The Jewess looked up. Upon each cheek there was a glow. Her eyes sparkled with a light more nearly of anger than ever her nature emitted before. Her gentleness had been too roughly overridden. It was not enough for her to be forbidden more than fugitive dreams of the man she loved. A boastful rival must tell her in confidence of her better success, and of the brilliant promises which were its rewards. Of her, the servant of a servant, there had been no hint of remembrance. This other could show his letter, leaving her to imagine all it breached. So she said, "Dost thou love him so much, then, or Rome so much the better?" The Egyptian drew back a step. Then she bent her haughty head quite near her questioner. "What is he to thee, O daughter of Simonides?" Esther, all thrilling, began, "He is my—" A thought, blasting as lightning, stayed the words. She paled, trembled, recovered, and answered, "He is my father's friend." Her tongue had refused to admit her servile condition. Iris laughed more lightly than before. "Not more than that," she said. "Ah, by the lover gods of Egypt, thou mayest keep thy kisses, keep them. Thou hast taught me but now that there are others vastly more estimable waiting me here in Judea. And," she turned away, looking back over her shoulder, "I will go get them. Peace to thee." Esther saw her disappear down the steps, when, putting her hands over her face, she burst into tears so they ran scalding through her fingers, tears of shame and choking passion, and, to deepen the paroxysm to her even temper so strange, up with a new meaning of withering force rose her father's words, "Thy love might not have been vainly given, had I kept fast hold of all I had, as I might have done." And all the stars were out, burning low above the city, and the dark wall of mountains about it, before she recovered enough to go back to the summer house, and in silence take her accustomed place at her father's side, humbly awaiting his pleasure. To such duty it seemed her youth, if not her life, must be given. And, let the truth be said, now that the pang was spent, she went not unwillingly back to the duty. Chapter 2, Ben-Hur tells of the Nazarene, and the light is just like going on and off, and I don't know why the light on my screen is kind of being weird. So, sorry about that. See, like right now it's dark, and then it gets light, so... All right, Chapter 2, Ben-Hur tells of the Nazarene. An hour or thereabouts after the scene upon the roof, Balthazar and Simonides, the latter attended by Esther, met in the great chamber of the palace, and while they were talking, Ben-Hur and Iris came in together. The young Jew, advancing in front of his companion, walked first to Balthazar and saluted him, and received his reply. Then he turned to Simonides, but paused at sight of Esther. It is not often we have hearts roomy enough for more than one of the absorbing passions at the same time. In its blaze the others may continue to live, but only as lesser lights. So with Ben-Hur, much study of possibilities, indulgence of hopes and dreams, influences born of the condition of his country, influences more direct, that of Iris, for example, had made him, in the broadest worldly sense, ambitious, and as he had given the passion place, allowing it to become a rule and finally an imperious governor, and the resolves and impulses of former days faded imperceptibly out of being, and at last almost out of recollection. It is at best so easy to forget our youth. In his case, it was but natural that his own sufferings and the mystery darkening the fate of his family should move him less and less as, in hope at least, he approached nearer and nearer the goals which occupied all his visions. Only let us not judge him too harshly. He paused in surprise at seeing Esther, a woman now, and so beautiful, and as he stood looking at her, a still voice reminded him of broken vows and duties undone. Almost his old self returned. For an instant he was startled, but recovering, he went to Esther and said, "Peace to thee, sweet Esther, peace. And thou, Simonides," he looked to the merchant as he spoke, "the blessing of the Lord be thine, if only because thou hast been a good father to the fatherless." Esther heard him with a downcast face. Simonides answered, "I repeat the welcome of the good Balthazar, son of Hur. Welcome to thy father's house, and sit, and tell us of thy travels, and of thy work, and of the wonderful Nazarene, who he is, and what. And thou art not at ease here, who shall be? If thou art not at ease here, who shall be? Sit, I pray, there between us, that we may all hear." Esther stepped out quickly and brought a covered stool and set it for him. "Thanks," he said to her gratefully. When seated, after some other conversation, he addressed himself to the men. "I have come to tell you of the Nazarene." The two became instantly attentive. "For many days now I have followed him with such watchfulness as one may give another upon whom he is waiting so anxiously. I have seen him under all circumstances, said to be trials and tests of men, and while I am certain he is a man as I am, not less certain am I he is something more. That he is something more." "What more?" asked Simonides. "I will tell you." Someone coming into the room interrupted him. He turned and arose with extended arms. "Amra, dear old Amra," he cried. She came forward, and they, seeing the joy in her face, thought not once how wrinkled and tawny it was. She knelt at his feet, clasped his knees, and kissed his hands over and over. And when he could put the lank gray hair from her cheeks, and kissed them, saying, "Good Amra, have you nothing of them, not a word, not one little sign?" Then she broke into sobbing, which made him answer plainer even than the spoken word. "God's will has been done," he next said solemnly, in a tone to make each listener know he had no hope more of finding his people. In his eyes there were tears which he would not have them see, because he was a man. When he could again, he took seat and said, "Come, sit by me, Amra, here. No? Then at my feet, for I have much to say to these good friends of a wonderful man come into the world." But she went off, and, stooping with her back to the wall, joined her hands before her knees, content, they all thought, with seeing him. Then Ben-Hur, bowing to the old man, began again. "I fear to answer the question asked me about the Nazarene without first telling you some of the things I have seen him do, and to that I am the more inclined, my friends, because tomorrow he will come to the city and go up into the temple which he calls his Father's house, where it is further said he will proclaim himself. So whether you are right, O Balthazar, or you, Simonides, we and Israel shall know tomorrow. Balthazar rubbed his hands tremulously together and asked, Where shall I go to see him? The pressure of the crowd will be very great. Better, I think, that you all go upon the roof of the cloisters, say, upon the porch of Solomon. Can you be with us? No, said Ben-Hur. My friends will require me, perhaps in the procession. Procession? Exclaimed Simonides. Does he travel in state? Ben-Hur saw the argument in mind. He brings 12 men with him, fishermen, tillers of the soil, one a publican, all of the humbler class, and he and they make their journeys on foot, careless of wind, cold, rain, or sun. Seeing them stop by the wayside at nightfall to break bread or lie down to sleep, I have been reminded of a party of shepherds going back to their flocks from the market, not of nobles and kings. Only when he lifts the corners of his handkerchief to look at someone or shake the dust from his head, I am made to know he is their teacher, as well as their companion, their superior, not less than their friend. You are shrewd men, Ben-Hur resumed after a pause. You know what creatures of certain master motives we are, and that it has become little less than a law of our nature to spend life in eager pursuit of certain objects, now appealing to that law as something by which we may know ourselves. What would you say of a man who could be rich by making gold of the stones under his feet, yet is poor of choice? The Greeks would call him a philosopher, said Iris. Nay, daughter, said Balthazar, the philosophers had never the power to do such a thing. How know you this man has? Ben-Hur answered quickly. I saw him turn water into wine. Very strange, said Simonides, but it is not so strange to me as that he should prefer to live poor when he could be so rich. Is he so poor? He owns nothing, and envies nobody of its owning. He pities the rich, but passing that, what would you say to see a man multiply 7 loaves and 2 fishes, all his store, into enough to feed 5,000 people, and have full baskets left over? That I saw the Nazarene do. You saw it? Exclaimed Simonides. Aye, and I ate of the bread and the fish. More marvelous still, Ben-Hur continued, what would you say of a man in whom there is such healing virtue that the sick have but to touch the hem of his garment to be cured, or cry to him afar? That too I witnessed, not once, but many times. As we came out of Jericho, 2 blind men by the wayside called to the Nazarene, and he touched their eyes, and they saw. So they brought a palsied man to him, and he said merely, Go unto thy house. And the man went away well. What say you to these things? The merchant had no answer. Think you now, as I heard others argue, that what I have told you are tricks of jugglery? Let me answer by recalling greater things which I have seen him do. Look first to that curse of God, comfortless, as you all know, except by death, leprosy. At these words, Amra dropped her hands to the floor, and in her eagerness to hear him half arose. What would you say? Said Ben-Hur with increased earnestness. What would you say to have seen that I now tell you? A leper came to the Nazarene while I was with him down in Galilee, and said, Lord, if thou wilt, thou canst make me clean. He heard the cry, and touched the outcast with his hand, saying, Be thou clean. And forthwith the man was himself again, healthful as any of us who beheld the cure, and we were a multitude. Here Amra arose, and with her gaunt fingers held the wiry locks from her eyes. The brain of the poor creature had long since gone to heart, and she was troubled to follow the speech. Then again, said Ben-Hur without stop, 10 lepers came to him one day in a body, and falling at his feet called out, I saw and heard it all, called out, Master, Master, have mercy upon us. He told them, Go, show yourselves to the priests, as the law requires, and before you are come there ye shall be healed. And were they? Yes. On the road going their infirmity left them, so that there was nothing to remind us of it except their polluted clothes. Such thing was never heard of before, never in all of Israel, said Simonides in undertone. And then, while he was speaking, Amra turned away and walked noiselessly to the door and went out, and none of the company saw her go. The thought stirred by such things done under my eyes I leave you to imagine, said Ben-Hur, continuing. But my doubts, my misgivings, my amazement were not yet at the full. The people of Galilee are, as you know, impetuous and rash. After years of waiting, their swords burned their hands. Nothing would do them but action. He is slow to declare himself. Let us force him, they cried to me, and I too became impatient. If he is to be king, why not now? The legions are ready. So as he was once teaching by the seaside, we would have crowned him whether or not. But he disappeared, and was next seen on a ship departing from the shore. Good Simonides, the desires that make other men mad, riches, power, even kingships offered out of the great love by a great people, move this one not at all. What say you? The merchant's chin was low upon his breast. Raising his head, he replied resolutely, The Lord liveth, and so do the words of the prophets. Time is in the green yet. Let tomorrow answer. Be it so, said Balthazar, smiling. And Ben-Hur said, Be it so. Then he went on, But I have not yet done. From these things not too great to be above suspicion by such as did not see them in performance as I did, let me carry you now to others infinitely greater, acknowledged since the world began to be past the power of man. Tell me, has anyone to your knowledge ever reached out and taken from death what death has made his own? Who ever gave again the breath of his life lost? Who but God? Said Balthazar reverently. Ben-Hur bowed. O wise Egyptian, I may not refuse the name you lend me. What would you, or you, Simonides, what would you either or both have said had you seen, as I did, a man with few words and no ceremony, without effort, more than a mother's when she speaks to wake her child asleep, undo the work of death? It was down at Nain. We were about going into the gate when a company came out bearing a dead man. The Nazarene stopped to let the train pass. There was a woman among them crying. I saw his face soften with pity. He spoke to her, then went and touched the bier, and said to him who lay upon the dressed for burial, Young man, I say unto thee, arise. And instantly the dead sat up and talked. God only is so great, said Balthazar to Simonides. Mark you, Ben-Hur proceeded, I do but tell you things of which I was a witness, together with a cloud of other men. On the way hither I saw another act still more mighty. In Bethany there was a man named Lazarus who died and was buried, and after he had lain 4 days in the tomb, shut in by a great stone, the Nazarene was shown to the place. Upon rolling the stone away, we beheld the man lying inside, bound and rotting. There were many people standing by, and we all heard what the Nazarene said, for he spoke in a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth! I cannot tell you my feelings when in answer, as it were, the man arose and came out to us with all his cerements about him. Loose him, said the Nazarene next. Loose him and let him go. And when the napkin was taken from the face of the resurrected, lo, my friends, the blood ran anew through the wasted body, and he was exactly as he had been in life before the sickness that took him off. He lives yet, and is hourly seen and spoken to. You may go see him tomorrow. And now, as nothing more is needed for the purpose, I ask you that which I came to ask, it being but a repetition of what you said to me, O Simonides. What more than a man is this Nazarene? The question was put solemnly, and long after midnight the company sat and debated it, Simonides being yet unwilling to give up his understanding of the sayings of the prophets, and Ben-Hur contending that the elder disputants were both right, that the Nazarene was the Redeemer, as claimed by Balthazar, and also the destined king the merchant would have. Tomorrow we shall see. Peace to you all." So saying, Ben-Hur took his leave, intending to return to Bethany. And that is the end of chapter 2. Chapter 3 is called "The Lepers Leave Their Tomb." And so I hope that you tune in for tomorrow, and hopefully my lighting is better tomorrow. We should be able to read chapter 3 and 4 at least. And so I hope you're enjoying the story of Ben-Hur, and we will continue tomorrow. Be sure and hit the like button or the heart or whatever it is that you want to do. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for the hearts. I like that. And I've got today and tomorrow night left with the shaggy old man, and then I have to go back to work on Tuesday. So, all right. I hope you enjoy Ben-Hur, and we will see you again tomorrow. God bless you. Have a good night.